Hello everyone, it's Dr. Tracy Shroyer, and I wanted to share a few things with you this morning. I just got into work, getting ready to head into class here shortly, and one of the things I was thinking about, I did a lot with my business over the weekend and getting some things prepared, some great things coming for you related to career development and your career journey. And one of the pieces of the framework that I have built this year focuses, and it's the very first piece of the framework, focuses on getting clarity on what your career journey should look like, what that next step should look like, not even the whole next 5 years, that kind of thing, but really making sure that you're getting clarity. And one of the things that I was making connections with as I was thinking on the way in this morning was I have several students I'm advising now in my job as a professor at a university. And one of the students I talked to, even just recently, in the last week or so, he has decided to change from one major to business and keeping a minor that he was still working on unrelated to business. And it's been really cool because I've had him in class last semester and this semester, and watching and thinking about like what his thought process maybe is, and even just getting to talk to him since he's decided to change his major, and what does that look like, and for his studies and everything. And it made me think back to when we were little kids, and any little kids really, but probably more when I was younger, other people were younger, and people ask, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it feels like the response was always like a teacher or a doctor or a scientist or something like that, a fireman, those types of roles. And what we didn't know was all of the different types of roles that were out there. And how could we? We're kids, right? But what I realize is that so many people, even into college, or if you don't go to college and you go right into the workforce and you just start working, is you still don't realize, like, what are those different types of opportunities, and what are the skills that you have built over time, the experience that you've built over time, the education and the knowledge that you've gained. What are those opportunities that are out there? And I find, and this is why I even changed the pillars that I used to keep for my business, my career coaching business. The one that was missing, and that I wasn't realizing for the longest time until I've talked to more people over the last, I would say, year, 6 months to a year, is that gaining clarity and clarifying what are those opportunities and what do I want to do. And I would say one big thing for me is thinking about when you start college, and all of these students that I'm working with, you go into college and maybe you're undecided on your major initially, and then at a certain point you're declaring what your major is. And when I started college, long time ago, I declared my major as computer science. I was very, very interested in figuring out computers and coding and like all of that stuff. My grandma, yes, this dates me, but who cares? My grandma had a computer in her house, and it wasn't touched. They didn't know how to use it. It was very big, huge, and I started to play around with it. And it was all DOS Windows, for those of you who know. It was all DOS, and we didn't have a ton of things with the internet. That was very fresh and new. Even at that age, I think it was a little bit after that. And so I had to really figure out and play and ask people and things like that to figure out how to get into it. And so I got really interested in that. So I declared computer science as my major. I started in my first semester of college and took a coding class. And for those in technology, it was Pascal. And I was like, I can't do this. And this is too much. Not what I thought. Didn't add that creative aspect that I was feeling like would be there. And usually that's what happens, right? You take one class, it kind of weeds you out. And ended up changing my major. Went to English, eventually got my master's in business, got another master's in industrial organizational psychology, a PhD related to business, and took that path. But imagine if you went to college and you declared your major, and you weren't allowed to change it. You either take that major or you're done, like you quit. How many people would not go or would end up dropping out of college because of that? Because I think the average college student changes their major, like, Tracy B, you might need to check me on this, but I thought it was like 4 or 5 times throughout their college career. Possibly, like, that's maybe an average or something, or 3 or 4 times maybe, but quite a bit. They're learning as they go, just like we are, right? We're learning as we go to figure out, like, what are those things that we're passionate about? What are those things that we're interested in? For some people, it's what are those things that are going to make me the most money? And that's the direction that I'm going to go. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Like, that's, some people do that. And if you think about it, it correlates really nicely to us going into our careers as well. And especially those people who went into their careers side by side to schooling, like I did. I was working full time while I was going through all of my college. Or maybe you went into the workforce and you didn't do college. Maybe you took a class or two, or maybe you didn't take any classes. No judgment. That's fine. It's not for everybody. But if we think about, if you went into the workforce and you went in as a certain job role and you weren't allowed to change, how miserable might you be? Like, think about over time. Some of you may have been in your careers and your job role specifically for a long time, but think about if you had to stay in the same exact job role the whole time you were in your career. So in my corporate career, I was there 27 years. Every 3 to 4 years, I was in a different job role doing different things. I spanned across so many different areas of the company and business and risk and things like that, training, learning, and development, and all different roles even in those, subcategories. But think about if you had to stay in the same exact one. And I also want you to think about all of the careers and the roles that you may have heard of since you have been learning and growing as an adult that you didn't know as a kid. Now, there's not very many kids that are like, I want to be a project manager when I grow up. I want to be a marketing analyst when I grow up. I want to be a human resources representative. I want to focus on employee relations, things like that, and knowing those more specific roles. So we definitely were learning and we're growing, and we're not stuck. We're not stuck at all. And finding that clarity is so amazing and a great feeling. And you should have several points in your life where you have those moments where you just sit, you reflect, and you work to gain that clarity. And it's not easy to come by. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of inner work involved. And I can tell you, when I got laid off very unexpectedly from my 27-year corporate career, I started applying like crazy to places for exactly what I was doing for those last couple years, thinking that I had to, like I didn't have a choice, like that was the job and I'm pigeonholed in that job. And then I hit a period of time where I gave myself grace, and I took a pause, and I thought, you know what? I don't have to do this. And better yet, do I even want to do this? Like, I did enjoy it. I did love it. I love working with my team, but there was a lot of things that I enjoyed that I could do something different and enjoy just as much, if not more. And so I took some time for clarity. And I know one thing that is challenging, especially if you're laid off, is sometimes you don't have the benefit of having a lot of time for clarity because of financial means. I had a clock ticking of when I needed to find something, or when I needed to grow my business by a certain date, or I needed to find something else, that kind of thing. So I definitely understand it from that perspective. Everybody's time clocks are different for that. Everybody's financial means are different. But I encourage you to really take some time, even if things are okay in your career right now, in your job role right now, or maybe you've been laid off, or maybe you're like burnt out and you need something different, to really take some time and to reflect. And in the podcast episode that I shared for this week, I go more into clarity and what that means, and some reflection questions that would be really helpful for you as you kind of take a breath, take a moment to think about, where do I want to go next? What does next look like? And not pressuring yourself to think about, in 5 years, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do this. And I feel like when I started my career, I remember that so vividly, being in an interview with a department manager and him saying, where do you want to be in 5 years? Like, that was always the big question, interview question, I felt like around that time and for the longest time afterwards. And you always felt the pressure to say, I want to be an X. I want to be in this particular role. And you know what? I changed my mindset years ago for that. And a lot of that has to do with career coaching. And I coach people the same. You don't have to say what role you want in 5 years. I started to say, I want to be in a role where I'm challenged, I'm happy, I have a good balance, I have flexibility in my role, I don't have to travel a lot. All of those types of things that I want versus what do I have to be? What role do I have to hold? Those kinds of things. Because when you think about all of those specific things that I want, or all of those general things that I might want, they could be in a role where somebody else looks at it completely different. Or there may be roles out there that you're not aware of, and maybe if you're interviewing for something and that's your answer to that question, if it comes up, the interviewer may think, oh, there's other roles that kind of fit that, what you're looking for. And those are roles that maybe we never even thought of previously. So just to share with you, so starting out the month of April, that first podcast episode that's out there, and it's Career Dev, DEV podcast. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can tune in. And it's all about clarity. What does that mean? What does that look like? Why is it important? And that is the first of the 4 big pillars that I have in this new framework that I developed after talking with and working with hundreds of career coaching clients and supporting them along the way. It wasn't rushing into writing a resume, having a good resume that stands out. Before you even get to the resume, and I have this with some of my clients now, they're like, oh, I just want to write a resume. Can you tell me what to put on here? And I say, can you send me job descriptions that you've looked for? I want to get more of the picture, more of the story of what they're looking for, where they want to go, those kinds of things. And they're like, oh, I haven't looked yet. Well, it's really hard to write a resume. It's really hard to put together that initial piece of a roadmap when you're missing the very first step of having that clarity of where do you want to go? What does that look like? What are those opportunities that may be out there? And for the first step is really that inner clarity and reflection and figuring that out and getting support into helping you. We don't know what all the opportunities are. So getting support and helping you figure that out based on that reflection that you've done. So if you're interested, check out the podcast episode. It's Career Dev is the name of the podcast, again, DEV. I also have, I'm so excited about this, I have a quiz that you can take to figure out, is clarify the step that you're in, or are you in one of the other steps and you need support in some of the other pieces related to your career development. And you can visit that at www.tracyshroyerphd.com/assessment. And you'll go through and answer, I think it's like 6 questions. Pop in your email and you'll get your results. And I have tons of free resources to share with you, and something big that's coming up in July that I'll share more about in the coming days and the coming weeks. So I hope this is helpful for you. I hope you don't feel stuck. I hope you don't feel like you have to throw your resume in the pile, get it done quickly, apply for 50, 100 jobs right away when you're not even sure what the direction is. And that you can take a breath, you can take a pause and really reflect and get that clarity so that you can have a solid foundation to build your career journey and where you go next. Thank you and have a great day.